Communication models are tools that explain how people share and understand messages. They show the steps of communication, including the sender, message, channel, receiver, feedback, and noise. These models help us understand how communication works and how to make it more effective. What is communication models? Models of communication are conceptual models used to describe the communication process. Traditionally, there were three models of communication, which some of the authors and researchers belong to each of these models. Communication models help us understand how communication works, identify possible barriers, and improve our communication skills. They serve as guides for effective message delivery and are useful in education, media, business, and daily life. Linear model. Aristotle model. Aristotle's linear model is a one-way communication process focused on public speaking. It includes a speaker, speech, message, audience, and the effect of the message. The goal is to persuade the audience, with no feedback involved. Next is the transactional model. Communication explains how people communicate in a more realistic and interactive way. Unlike earlier models that show communication as one way, the transactional model highlights that both the sender and receiver are active at the same time. They send and receive messages continuously, often giving instant feedback. This model also considers the context of the situation, like environment, relationship, and culture, which can influence how messages are understood. It also shows that noise or distractions may affect communication. An example is a normal conversation, where two people speak, listen, and respond at the same time. Overall, the transactional model is important because it reflects real-life communication, dynamic, ongoing, and influenced by many factors. The interactive model of communication, introduced by Wilbur Schramm, marked a major improvement in understanding how people communicate. Unlike the linear model, which views communication as a one-way process, Schramm's model emphasizes that communication is two-way and involves feedback from both the sender and the receiver. This means that communication is not complete until the receiver responds, making it a more realistic reflection of everyday interaction. A key feature of Schramm's model is the concept of the field of experience. This refers to the shared background, knowledge, beliefs, and culture between the sender and the receiver. When both parties have similar experiences or understanding, communication becomes more effective. If their fields of experience are very different, misunderstandings may occur. Another important element of the interactive model is feedback. It shows that communication is not just about sending messages, but also about receiving responses and adjusting accordingly. This makes communication more active and dynamic. For example, in a classroom discussion, a teacher speaks and students ask questions or respond. Both are sending and receiving messages continuously. In conclusion, Wilbur Schramm's interactive model of communication helps us understand that communication is a shared, two-way process. It highlights the importance of feedback and shared experience in making communication successful, especially in education, media, and interpersonal relationships. Examples: two people chatting via text message. One sends a message, the other replies. Both understand each other better if they share similar knowledge or experiences. Introducing the models of communication. 1. Aristotle model, a speaker-centered model, as the speaker has the most important role on it and is the only one active. It mainly focused on the speaker, speech, message, and audience. Aristotle's model of communication. Speaker, message listener. 2. Wilbur Schramm model. Schramm is considered the father of communication. He was the first individual to identify himself as a communication scholar. In his model, he explained that communication is a two-way circular between the sender and the receiver. It emphasizes on encoding and decoding of messages. Wilbur Schramm's model explains communication as a two-way process with feedback. It includes the sender, message, channel, and receiver, and highlights the importance of shared experiences, field of experience, for better understanding. This model shows that both people take turns sending and receiving messages, making communication interactive and more realistic. The Wilbur Schramm model shows that communication is a two-way, continuous process between a sender and a receiver. Both take turns encoding, interpreting, and decoding messages. The cycle includes the speaker, message, receiver, and feedback. Feedback makes the process interactive, and shared understanding is achieved through constant exchange. 3. Eugene White Model. White's model of communication tells that it is circular and continuous, without a beginning or an end. He contributed the concept of feedback to the field of communication. Feedback is the perception by the speaker about the response of the listener. Eugene White's model of communication presents communication as a continuous, circular, and dynamic process. Unlike earlier models that view communication in simple steps, White believed that communication has no true beginning or end. It happens all the time, even when we are silent or nonverbal. The model includes 8 stages: thinking, symbolizing, expressing, transmitting, receiving, decoding, feedback, and monitoring. These stages explain how messages are formed, delivered, and interpreted. For example, when we think of an idea, we put it into words, symbolizing, speak it, expressing, and someone hears it, receiving, understands it, decoding, and responds, feedback. We then monitor how our message was understood and adjust our future communication accordingly. White's model also emphasizes that our past experiences influence how we communicate. This makes each communication event unique. Overall, Eugene White's model gives a realistic view of how complex and ongoing human communication really is. Eugene White's communication cycle. Eugene White's model shows that communication is a continuous, circular process with no clear beginning or end. It involves stages like thinking, symbolizing, expressing, transmitting, receiving, decoding, feedback, and monitoring. The model emphasizes that communication flows constantly and is shaped by feedback and the speaker's awareness of the listener's response. Examples. Eugene White's model. In a classroom, a teacher plans and delivers a lesson, thinking to transmitting. Students receive and interpret it, receiving and decoding, and respond with questions or feedback. The teacher observes their reactions, monitoring, and adjusts the lesson. This cycle shows how communication is continuous and shaped by feedback. Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver model. The Shannon-Weaver model has been called the mother of all models. Social scientists use the term to refer to an integrated model of the concepts of the information source, message, transmitter, signal, channel, noise, receiver, information destination, probability of error, encoding, decoding, information rate, and channel capacity. Eugene White's communication cycle, based on the picture. The picture shows Eugene White's model as a continuous communication cycle with 8 steps: thinking, symbolizing, expressing, transmitting, receiving, decoding, feedback, and monitoring. It highlights that communication is ongoing, circular, and shaped by both people's reactions and experiences. Each part of the cycle leads to the next, showing that communication never truly stops. The process of communication. The communication process is the basis for realizing the effectiveness of communication, where the sharing of a common meaning occurs between the sender and the receiver. Effective communication leads to understanding. There are also factors present in the communication process, and these are in the form of the sender and the receiver. It consists of key components such as encoding, the medium of transmission, decoding, and feedback. Example of the communication process. A student asks a teacher a question in class. 1. Sender, the student who has a question. 2. Encoding, the student puts the question into words. 3. Message. Ma'am, can you explain the topic again? 4. Channel, spoken words, voice. 5. Receiver, the teacher hears the question. 6. Decoding, the teacher understands that the student didn't understand the lesson. 7. Feedback, the teacher replies, "Sure, let me explain it once more." 8. Noise, if there was loud noise in the classroom, it might make the message harder to hear. This example shows how communication works through clear steps, with both sender and receiver playing important roles. 6. Decoding, the teacher understands that the student didn't understand the lesson. 6. Decoding, the teacher understands that the student didn't understand the lesson. 7. Feedback, the teacher replies, Sure, let me explain it once more. 8. Noise. If there was loud noise in the classroom, it might make the message harder to hear. This example shows how communication works through clear steps, with both sender and receiver playing important roles. Introducing the elements of communication. Communication comes about when the message is imparted as information. To understand the process of communication, it is break down into 7 essential elements. 1. The speaker is an important element of communication, being the source of delivering the information in a verbal or nonverbal way. 2. The message is what needs to be delivered by the speaker. It is central to the process because it is the point of saying something based on why, what, and how the speaker wants to say. 3. The listener is the one who receives the message. The feedback depends on how the listener reacts to the message sent. It has been said that no matter how great the speaker is and good the message, if there is no listener or are not listening, then communication fails. 4. Channel is the way in which a message is sent through our senses. 5. The response is the only way the speaker knows that the message has been received based on how it is interpreted by the receiver, whether it is positive or negative. 6. Feedback is the result of monitoring the listener's response. The positive or negative response depends on how the listener effectively interpreted the message. Speaker will make sure of the feedback in continuing his or her message. 7. Noise is any barrier or interference to communication. Activity number 2. Complete the table below. Objective. This activity helps you analyze and compare different models of communication by identifying their similarities and differences. 1. In the first column, models of communication, write the names of different communication models. Linear model, interactive model, transactional model. 2. In the second column, similarities, describe what the selected model has in common with the others. For example, involves a sender and a receiver. 3. In the third column, differences, explain how the model is different from the others. For example, the linear model is one way. It does not include feedback. Rubric criteria, how it will be scored. Points criteria. 4 points clear and persuasive ideas were presented in all 3 columns. 3 points clear and persuasive ideas were presented in 2 columns. 2 points clear and persuasive ideas were presented in 1 column. 1 point clear and persuasive ideas were not presented in any or all columns.